And now on to the bookshelf right by my bed. These are all books that I'm usually currently reading, so I keep this in flux. I'll go through them one at a time. We'll start with the first one here. You are psychic. Yes, it's talking to you, it's talking to me, it's talking to anyone. You just have to find that realm and do a lot of exercises and get on that plane. A dictionary of Greek and Roman mythology. Everyone needs one of these babies. Let's look into it. It's basically little biographies on all of them, you know. Jupiter, Agonar, Ajax, Medusa, the Gorgon. All mythological creatures pretty much from Greek and Roman mythology, but it's not that in depth though. Anyway, next one. Tales from the Script. 50 Hollywood screenwriters share their stories. There's a lot of good ones in here. Nice book to have. They tell you about all different various stages of writing, just starting out, trying to enter the business, and other different things, different kind of writing stories, obviously. Philosophy. I've never really gotten into philosophy yet, but this is an awesome book, and I plan on reading it and getting into philosophy one day. I know that it'll consume a lot of my time, so one day. Christopher Pike novel. I really don't like this guy in comparison to R.L. Stine. He's kind of like the R.L. Stine of the 80s, where he wrote a bunch of popular teen, young adult novel thrillers. Kind of in the same vein of Fear Street, kind of. He wrote a ton of books. He's still writing books to this day, actually. And I think that's a pseudonym for him. This one I got recently. I got in the summer of 2015. This is the best from fantasy and science fiction. That is the literary magazine from back in the day. I don't think it's active anymore, but I wasn't really impressed with many of these stories, but it still just sits there. It's a nice cover, nice collection of their best stories from that year, the 19th edition. Another Eden Gray, The Tarot Revealed. I love her books. Michael Crichton, The Lost World. This is the sequel to Jurassic Park. He was known for never writing sequels to any of his novels. Then obviously with the popularity of Jurassic Park and the public and fan pressure, he went on to write this, which was substantially different from the movie. I'm about 75% of the way through that. The Dark Knight movie adaptation. Yep, you're seeing it. That's not the DVD, that's the actual movie adaptation. This is based on the screenplay. It's a novelization by Dennis O'Neil, who is the guy. Let me just read an excerpt for fun here. It was what most of Gotham's citizens thought was a typical afternoon in the life of Playboy Bruce Wayne. A quick stop at the gallery opening, where he ignored the photographs on display, but managed to get the phone number of the pretty receptionist. Oh, yeah. I wrote a blog on this chapter. Check out movie novelizations at Blogger, where I do movie novelizations review. I started to do a chapter by chapter one, then I just kind of abandoned it, and I'll probably pick it up eventually. Okay, Tarzan. Edgar Rice Burroughs. This guy wrote Tarzan, I can't remember which decade, but it was way back in the day. 20s, 30s, somewhere in there. Back in the pulp days. And this is number one, so it starts off with the very first one, even though there's a ton of these books out there. And I started to read it. It's really bad, and it's written in first person, and I don't read stories written in first person. I just can't take it. I can only read third person omniscient. Conan the Wanderer. They made a number of these, too. This is Lancer produced. This is where they collect a bunch of different short stories from Robert E. Howard, who is the creator of Conan. You might not know, the guy who created Conan, the guy was a genius. He died in his early 30s. He committed suicide. He's one of my favorite writers. I love reading his stuff. He's great with adjectives and descriptive, and he knows a lot of history. And he created his own world. He essentially invented the epic fantasy of swords and sorcery genre. And his stories still hold up to this day. He's immensely talented. Every horror fan's gotta have it. Edgar Allan Poe, a compendium of Edgar Allan Poe. This is 18 stories. The ones that you've all heard of. The Fall of the House of the Usher, The Sphinx, The Murders in the Rue Morgue. A lot of these have been adapted into horror movies over the decades. Here's another movie adaptation from the 80s. This is when sword and sorcery was in its heyday, The Dragon Slayer. Actually, it's just Dragon Slayer. Final Exam. This is a rare slasher film, and yes, they did make a novelization of this. And I got mine for about $20. They usually go for around 30 or 40. You can see mine has these kind of like indents, like someone sat like a chair on top of it at 2 points. But actually the pages and everything else is actually pretty crisp, and it's not very red that much. I pick it up and read it every now and then. I never really like the movie or anything, but I obviously love 80s slashers, so that's why I got it. Anyway, It's Alive, movie adaptation, movie novelization from Larry Cohen. I've done a movie review on it. I even showed excerpts from that book. It wasn't that greatly written. This is a Star Trek book. They made so many of these back in the 70s and 80s. They just published them with so many various authors. And this one stood out to me. I went out of my way to buy it. Actually, I didn't buy it online. I got it at a bookstore in Ann Arbor for like $3. It's the Prometheus design. Still haven't really gotten into it yet. I'm still trying to finish all my Star Trek comic books. And I'm actually reading another one. Let me see if it's here. No, I put it somewhere else. I don't feel it. On a lower bookshelf. Anyway, next one. Psycho 2. I can never find the original Psycho novel by Robert Bloch. But, that's Psycho 2. And it has nothing to do with the movie. It's completely different. And I haven't really read much of it. Only the first 3 chapters. Rocky. The movie adaptation. That one's actually a pretty decent one. It's a little skimpy read. You could finish it within a few weeks, reading it here and there. I'm about 40% of the way through it. I went through a Rocky binge when Creed came out. Okay, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This was done by James Caan. This guy did the Poltergeist movie novelization. He gets way too descriptive in some of his writing to the point where he can't combine it in prose, and he does the more tell instead of show. That's one of his writing flaws, so I can't really get through that. Anyway, I bought that for like $5 at a garage sale, and it's like almost in near flawless condition too. The Lando Calrissian trilogy. I have 2 of them. I believe this is the first one, Lando and the Mind Harp of Sahura. And that was by L. Neil Smith. And you can see the cover here. Show you the back. Let's go to the next Lando one that I have. Lando and the Flame Wind of Ocean. And this is the same author. And he's actually a pretty good author. I was pretty impressed by the prose. I haven't read the full first one yet. Only the first like 5 or 6 chapters or so. This is an anthology. Prophets in Hell. Most of these stories are pretty bad, actually. That's from the early 90s or late 80s, I believe. Paradise Lost. Of course I have this by my bookshelf. You ain't a real reader unless you got Paradise Lost and a bookmark permanently in it. Enough said. If you don't know what Paradise Lost is, look it up. You don't know anything about the world. Batman, the movie novelization. I'm actually getting through this. I just pick it up once every few months. I'm like, oh, I'll read more of it. I can only take Craigshaw Gardner in small doses. He writes in too much haste. George Lucas, Star Wars, the original movie adaptation. This came out even months before the movie came out, and it was written by the king of the movie novelization, Alan Dean Foster himself. Just an amazing, extraordinary writer. The Complete Book of Magic and Witchcraft. This is from the 70s and it's in really good condition. It's got a bunch of good info on herbs and numerology and a whole, just kind of like a mini encyclopedia on witchcraft. Hans Holzer, The Truth About Witchcraft. Oh, Hans, so nice of you to tell us everything. This is the guy who is most famous. He's an occult. He's even a doctor. He's an occult kind of researcher and author, and he kind of loves to exploit things, and he was all in on the whole Amityville mayhem back in the day. Anyway, he's dead. The Legacy. You might recognize this cover. This is the movie from the 70s, and that's the actual poster that they kind of use. And, it's decent prose. I'm only a few chapters in. I mean, if it was better, I'd probably read right through it, you know? This is where they all come to claim their inheritance when this one devilish, diabolical guy kind of dies. And then, yeah, I did a review on it. Search The Legacy 70s horror movie review. And the last one on this shelf, Reanimator. I got it in a book sleeve here. Prose is pretty good. Love this film. Love Jeffrey Combs' performance. This seems to be a pretty good book. One day I will devour this and review it on the blog, movie novelization at Blogspot, and maybe even review it on YouTube. Anyway, next will be the second shelf. I got like 4 rows on this bookshelf. This is a pretty tall bookshelf. Here's another one I'm reading, Final Grade, and The Druids of Shanhara. That's by Terry Brooks. That's the guy who did the Phantom of the Menace movie novelization. Anyway, I'm out. Thanks for watching. Tune in for more. Subscribe. Leave comments. Tell me about your book collection. I'd love to see it. And I'm out. Thanks for watching.